We are transmitting live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. Greetings to our participants in Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Paraguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, and other countries in Latin America. We would like to thank once again Telecomunicaciones de Mexico, Panamsat, and Brazilsat for their satellite linkage services, which allow us to reach all of you through the wonders of telecommunications. Welcome to the program, Managing Change and Stress, the Key to Success, the fifth video conference in our 1996 series entitled Strategies for Global Competitiveness. I am Armando Osorio, and I will be your moderator for this video conference. We would like to remind the coordinators at each receive site to collect the attendance sheets for your sites and mail them to the ITC, along with a list of participants interested in obtaining the certificate or diploma for this series of programs. This program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. This program is important given today's dynamic and complex economic, political, and social reality. It has a profound impact on the way we plan, manage, and operate our organizations, both in industrialized countries as well as in the developing world. The recurrent element we experience on a daily basis is an inevitable process of change and adaptation. Our workplace cannot survive this challenge of continuous change without an effective strategy of organizational management that minimizes stress and other adverse effects of a constantly uncertain future. What is truly needed is a systematic and disciplined method of managing organizational change, reducing costs and maximizing benefits. Today you will learn about a practical model for change that has been applied, calibrated, and proven effective in business and governments around the world by the well-known expert speaker Dr. James Belasco. It all starts with the promotion of a genuine sense of personal urgency for change and the creation of a direct communication bridge with the client. This is followed by the development of an organizational vision based on a process of empowerment at all levels. Our speaker will describe 3 basic principles essential for successful implementation of this process, which conceptually has received much attention by various authors, but actually very little review as to the practical difficulties of managing it effectively. It is my pleasure to present to you today's guest and expert speaker, Dr. James Belasco. Dr. Belasco is known internationally as a consultant, professor, author, and expert in organizational change. Before joining the faculty of San Diego State University, Dr. Belasco was professor and chair at the State University of New York, Buffalo, and researcher at Cornell University. He has been named Outstanding Professor 5 times during the last 6 years by SDSU's College of Business Administration. Dr. Belasco has been on the boards of a number of multinational firms and was president and CEO of a $13 million company that produces ink for pens. Dr. Belasco has been guest speaker and consultant for a number of firms, including Royal Dutch Shell Corporation, Heineken Beer, Folklore Aircraft, IBM, Solar Turbines, Bank of America, Ralston Purina, Great American Savings, and Armorlight. Dr. Belasco holds 2 bachelor's degrees from Cornell University. He received his master's degree in management and marketing from Hofstra University and his doctorate from Cornell University. Dr. Belasco writes a weekly column for the newspapers San Diego Daily Transcript and the International Herald Tribune. He has written 7 books and 54 articles. His many books include the very successful Teaching the Elephant to Dance and his latest book, Flight of the Buffalo, co-written by another well-known expert, Rolf C. Stayer. Welcome, Dr. Belasco.
Thank you.
Before we begin, let me ask you the following. What are the basic elements of the relationship between change and stress, and in what way can organizations manage this relationship?
I think change happens all the time. It's a part of our regular ongoing life. We need to learn how to manage that change so it doesn't create dysfunctional stress. Organizational leaders have the responsibility to establish climates and systems and structures within their organization to minimize that stress, to enable that change occurs in a positive way, not in a negative and dysfunctional way. It's true in our personal lives, it's true in our community lives, it's true in our organizational lives. We need to learn how individually, as people in an organization and as leaders of that organization, of how to make stress not be dysfunctional as a result of change.
Thank you, Dr. Belasco. Let's begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible.
Hi, it's a real pleasure to be back with you. This is my 4th time on this satellite series. We live with stress all of our lives, and stress seems to be getting greater and greater. I don't need to tell you that. You live with it all the time. Stress is the camel that pokes its nose into our tent and leaves its foul-smelling odor everywhere. No single cause of stress is greater than the change which we experience. Change that seems to spin the world out of control. Change that seems to happen almost beyond our ability to understand. That change causes stress, and that stress causes us to live uncomfortable lives. I'd like to talk with you today about change and how to manage that change so that it doesn't cause the kind of stress that each and every one of us experiences. I'd like to propose that change really follows a model, and that we need to think about that model in terms of getting ahead of the change process rather than being the changee, but living a life in which we are the changer. The change model I'd like to propose consists of 4 critical parts. The change model begins first with a sense of urgency, a sense of, I got to be different because I see the need to be different. That urgency then gives rise to a vision of how I can be different, what I need to be different in. And then it gives rise to a sense of, I've got to do something, empowerment. And then it gives rise to a sense of execution, which is, what do I have to do right here and right now in order to make that happen? We're going to look at this change model throughout the entire time we're going to share, because I believe that if we can learn how to use this model and learn how to live with it and use it to our advantage, we can get ahead of the stress curve and, more importantly, gain control over our lives. There are 4 critical things that drive us to change today in the world of business. 4 forces that cause us to be different. The first force is the fact that we have smarter consumers. Our consumers today demand more, they know more, they are more experienced, more sophisticated. In addition to that, we also have the changing nature of competition. Our competitors today are brighter, they're faster, they're better. And oftentimes they come from unexpected sources. Then we have things happening faster, quicker, 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 faster, faster, faster seems to be the mantra. And then we need to keep comparing ourselves over and over again against the other benchmarks, the benchmarks that compare us to other people doing similar work to us. These 4 critical drivers cause us to be different. And my hypothesis is truly very simple. It is that each and every one of us must experience and understand those 4 drivers, and then how to capture and make those drivers work for us, so that rather than being victims, we are truly in charge. I'd like to share with you a piece of film, about 6.5 minutes worth, about the Sony manufacturing plant in Rancho Bernardo in California. They experienced a dramatic and traumatic change, and I'd like to share with you how they handled that change. Please watch the film with me now. Picture a young elephant playing in a river. Its mother standing by, close by, here for protection. That's the story of the Sony manufacturing plant right here in San Diego. For a long time, it existed under protection of its mother, Sony Japan. But then the icy, cold winds of change came in the late 1980s. It forced the elephant to grow up, and grow up it did. From 1990 being uncompetitive within the Sony family, to 1994 being the most competitive plant within the Sony family, and being chosen by Industry Week as one of the 10 best manufacturing plants in the entire country. Listen to the story of Sony as it has taken its journey.
We built the plant in 1972. We were the first Japanese electronics manufacturer to put a factory in the U.S., and we did it because our Trinitron business was growing so quickly. Sony was looking to expand its overseas picture tube and television set production, and we were competing for scarce capital with sister plants around the world.
Where did the vision come from? Where did the mission come from?
We started with management, getting in a little dark room and saying, gee, what should we be?
Our formula for being more successful is to move to more of a team-based environment, have workers that are working on the floor, making decisions in real time, and having the skill and knowledge and competence to do so.
The support team, which we're all members here sitting at the table, what we do is we help support the communication effort here at Sony. We try to make sure that the communication is not only from the bottom up, but it's also from the top down.
You have to test it with the workers who have to embrace it. And if they don't embrace it, it has to be changed.
I think it's getting the operators at the bottom level cross-trained to the point where they can make their own decisions.
So the mission or vision had to be developed in such a way that it was understandable to everybody at every level of the organization, and it had to tie in with our business goals, which were simply put to become the world's most competitive, highest quality picture tube maker.
Getting people to feel the same pressures, feel the same urgency as our managers always have, has been a key part of the training.
I think by enabling the operators to be cross-trained, they were able to take over the tech's jobs and free the techs up to come work with myself, a mechanic. And that enabled us to free up to do more work that the lead and the supervisor did normally 2 years ago.
Before, operators would see a machine down or something, and they would just sit there and wait for the tech to come by. Well, now, some of the operators are actually fixing whatever's wrong.
The biggest decisions they were making now that we weren't making before was actually quality judgments. Before, we used to have the supervisor make those judgments. In fact, we used to also have the supervisors making the judgments when we could shut the equipment down and when we could actually stop. Now the line runners are actually doing that. The operators, the technicians, and the mechanics are actually making that decision now. We look at the quality of the product. If it ain't right, we can stop the machine and make that decision right then and there.
Any one individual is empowered to shut the line down if they see that we're making a quality defect, or if there's an equipment problem that causes some problems down the line in the manufacturing process.
Well, if you take a look at our process here, you see that the way the lines are laid out, especially in the picture tube process, it really lends itself to teamwork. And so we took a look at that as a need that needed to be fulfilled, if you will, by bringing in the training and bringing in the education.
We spent a great deal of time educating ourselves when we had first formed. We put together a plan for a budget and asked our executive committee at that time for money to hire facilitators, because we learned from other companies that education was the key.
The ability to learn new skill is probably more important than the skill you bring.
Over time, the job of the supervisor has changed. How have you seen that change?
They're not going to be eliminated. They become a coach. They're still needed. You still need somebody to coach the team. As coaches, I think they're there to support the decisions that the team has made, whereas before the supervisor or coach would make the decision and everyone would go along with it. And we were pretty lucky with our supervisor. She would listen to what we had to say.
I moved from a police officer or a patroller to a coach. Before, if your supervisor walked into an area, everyone started working. Your supervisor walked out and they stopped. Well, now everyone works whether I'm standing in there or not.
Tell me about the skill-based pay arrangements.
The skill-based pay system that we've implemented here is designed to be a self-managed system. Each employee, every work area has a specific set of skill blocks. When they pick up a whole skill block, then they will receive an additional pay increase when they pick up that skill block.
As far as our mission as a team, one of our first steps was to identify some of the communications issues that were at hand and where we were weak, where we were strong. And what we did is we conducted a communication audit.
Tell me about the charts.
It used to be the supervisors and the leads that used to make them, and now it's the people that are actually working with the product, make the graphs and the charts, and it gives us something to look at now that before it was management that looked at them. The people on the floor rarely even knew what the heck they meant. Now they know what they mean, and they know what to look for when they look at it, and they come up with better ideas of how to make a better product.
We are not the ideal self-directed work team environment yet, but we have been on this journey for a few years now. Since 1991 we slowly started, and we are much better off now than we were back then.
We might have picked an easier course, but it doesn't have the long-term sustainability that employee empowerment should have.
This is a Sony story. Listen to the urgency driven by intense competition. Competition from within the Sony family, competition from external forces. Listen to the urgency caused by dramatically changing manufacturing technologies. Listen to the use of empowerment as a business strategy. Listen to the Sony story as the manufacturing facility moves from being endangered to being one of the best in the land. Listen to how manufacturing meets that challenge of change. I hope you enjoyed that little piece of Sony's story. It's a true story, and I think it lays the foundation for how we need to manage change. Listen, if you will, to the driving forces that cause Sony to be different. The forces that come from outside, the forces of change that roil our world, the forces of change that roiled Sony's world, as an example. You need to know customers' needs. You need to know what they're really looking for. Customers in the TV business kept demanding more, better quality. Customers kept demanding sharper picture quality. As a result, you had to anticipate what customers were truly going to demand. Have it ready for them before. That meant you had to sharpen and shorten your product development cycles. When you had engineering over in Japan and you had manufacturing here in California, it lengthened the process of developing new product. They had to move engineering from Japan to here in California so that the California plant could shorten the product development cycles and anticipate customer demands. You also need to deliver personalized offering. Sony's makes a wide variety of different kinds of TVs. The number of models have actually quadrupled over the last several years. And most importantly of all, you have to deliver knowledge wrapped along with the product and service you provide. People need to know how to use your product as well as just to have the product. All of which says that you need to deliver real value as defined by price, quality, and delivery. Listen to how the changing customer has caused Sony to be different. This is not different than, for instance, McDonald's. McDonald's used to be in the hamburger business. They sold a very limited menu, 12, 13, 14 items, all of which are based around hamburgers. Today, McDonald's sells well over 150 different items, and they offer many, many different things in addition to the traditional hamburgers. For instance, I was at a McDonald's just off Copacabana Beach, down there in Rio de Janeiro. And at that McDonald's, they offer the traditional fare from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. But then at 8 o'clock at night, they turn the lights down, they roll out the white linen and the fine china, and they serve along with their hamburgers. They also serve steak and lobster. And then at 10 o'clock at night, every night from 10 until 2, in addition to their steak and lobster and hamburger, they also offer samba, the national dance of Rio de Janeiro. You see, they understand what their customers in Rio de Janeiro really want. And McDonald's, in this mass merchandise business where they are turning out billions and billions of dollars worth billions and billions of hamburgers, they understand the need to personalize their offerings. Customers are smarter. The second key driving force is that competitors are better. We need to focus on the few things we do best At Sony, for instance, they had to focus on the few things that they did best. They had to then establish alliances with other manufacturing firms to help them deliver the cabinetry and so forth, the equipment that you saw there as an example as well. Much of that is designed at Sony, but Sony also relies upon outside contractors to build a fair amount of that specialized equipment. Sony needed to go back and use learning as a key competitive tool, learning about what the customer wanted. Sony sent its employees out to talk to customers in the retail stores, to talk to customers to find out what they really wanted, and then to bring that information back and use that learning as a tool to really leapfrog competition. And then lastly, we need to base all of this upon competitive fact, not competitive fiction. There is not an industry in our world today that is not being roiled by the winds of change. Look at the telecommunications industry, where in fact what's happening today is that telephone service is becoming a commodity. And the time is not too distant in the future when it will cost you no more to call across the street than will call to cost across the world. Look at the banking business, where finance organizations and pension funds and insurance firms all now are larger bankers than the bankers themselves. In virtually every industry you can think of, competition is stronger, is bigger, is better, is faster, and is often coming from places that we don't anticipate, from non-traditional forces. And all of this is happening faster, 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 which puts extreme pressure on us to respond even quicker. If you look at the design of the Boeing 777, they did that in 19 months. It took them 7 years to design the new 747. The need is to move quicker. It took Ford 8 years to design the new Taurus back in the middle 80s. Toyota today designs a new car in 18 months to make the difference. To make this happen, you must learn how to empower employees to move faster. Empower employees to make decisions so that they don't have to check with so many people. That means we need to move from talk to action. We need to do away with the meetings and get down to do what needs to be done and do it now. And lastly, I think we need to get to the point at which we create in our organization a risk-taking environment, an environment where people are truly willing to go out and to take risks so that they understand that their job is truly at risk. We help people to understand the need to do all this when we continue to benchmark against other organizations. The benchmark phenomenon and bringing that benchmark information down into each and every individual is so important. In the Sony example, for instance, the declining yen and the rising dollar all caused the Rancho Bernardo plant to become non-competitive. In addition to which, new competitors like Thompson buying RCA have been able to deliver televisions at a much lower unit cost. The result was that Sony faced the reality that in terms of the benchmark against the external market, Sony was one of the highest cost manufacturing TV plants around, and that Sony Rancho Bernardo was one of the highest cost manufacturing plants within the Sony family. Those two competitive benchmarks made it very clear that the people at Sony had to change. There's a critical message here in terms of how do you get people to change? By creating a sense of urgency. You create that sense of urgency by bringing to each and every individual the personal knowledge that their issue, that their job, that their situation is being threatened and that we need to do something about it. We need to do something about it pretty quickly. Urgency must be personal, and urgency relies upon the widely shared information for each and every individual. It is felt down in the belly, not in the head. First critical step is to create the sense of urgency. Urgency answers the question, why do I have to change? Next, we must have a vision of where to go, a vision that's clear and concise, a vision that's focused on getting and keeping customers, and a vision that's inspirational. When you sit and think about the Sony vision as an example, the vision to be the best of what they do, the vision to be the best TV tube manufacturer around, and the use of the EST words, EST, to be the best, to be better than the best. Vision then must be shared by everyone. And what Sony did is Sony put together a team of employees, a communications team, and you saw them all on the film, who were responsible to help each and every person understand, get the message of what the vision was all about. The vision is built around customers, and it's put together participatively. You see, even though the individuals on the line may not have participated in creating the vision, as you recall in the film, the managers went off into the dark room and did it, but the managers came back and then, using the communications team, shared it widely with everyone. And then it needs to be a guide to action. It needs to be something that each and every person understands. The support team worked with managers and employees to help them live the new teamwork-based vision. They arranged for coaching. They arranged for training of employees. The vision is a critical destination. It points out where we must go. To be successful, a vision needs to appeal to your heart, not to your mind or not to your pocketbook. It needs to be something that appeals to where you live. Let me give you a few examples of what I think are some excellent visions. The first vision is the vision of the single most successful commercial company in the world. The single most successful commercial company in the world. And they're in this high-tech business called cleaning toilets. And look at what their vision is: to honor God in all we do. They are a Christian organization and proud of their heritage. To grow people. The people in the Service Master organization receive 132 hours average in terms of their training and education. That's better than 3 weeks' worth of education. They benchmark assiduously against other firms. They know, as an example, that there are 19 fundamental business processes, and they are world-class in 11 of those. They pursue excellence with a vengeance and with a virtue. And then lastly, to grow profitably. Imagine a business that has shown an average annual return of 37% average compound annual return for the last 22 years. That's the Service Master story. That's the vision of that organization, and that vision helps their employees to manage the changes that happen all the time at Service Master. Look at another organization, the most successful computer services company around. And that organization is headquartered outside of Mont Blanc in France. If you've ever been there, you know Mont Blanc is the highest mountain on the continent of Western Europe. When you go out and look at this mountain, it towers high over the city. And what is the vision of this $9 billion business in the computer services and software business? It's to climb the next taller mountain together with customers, employees, and suppliers. Have you ever climbed a mountain? Do you know what it takes to climb a mountain? You strap yourself together, and for any person to make it to the top, we all have to make it to the top. And if any single person fails, it threatens the success and survival of us all. Feel the vision that talks to your heart. Feel the vision that talks to your soul. The vision of the most successful company in its business. Vision answers the critical question: where are we going? It provides direction as we move. It provides clarity